Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Coaching the Bible. Is episode 244, season 5, episode 31. Our topic of the week is going to be called Leading Without Knowing. We'll get to that in just a second. If you are watching this, then you'll see the sign behind me, that warning. It's my 50th birthday. As I mentioned last week, this week I celebrated my 50th birthday. Admittedly, at the outset, I was not sure how to emotionally connect to turning 50, how I was going to feel about it. Can't say I was ambivalent. I was just not sure. I just didn't know. And I had emotions going both ways. But I have to say that between the way my wife and children handled celebrating it for me and with me, and the response from friends and family all around, it really was a special kind of day. And thankfully, the celebration hasn't yet finished. So we're going to continue to celebrate. I've come around a little bit in my thinking around what 50 means and what it means for me and what it can mean for you potentially. And so I'm good. I feel good about it. I feel really good about it. So thank you to my wife, Naomi. Thanks to the kids for celebrating it and helping me to celebrate it in the right way, in a real positive way, in a good way, enjoying it, making it laugh, making it funny, making it fun as well. So all that is good, and that's a celebration. However, if you are a Knicks fan this week, tough week for us, Knicks fans. Tough week for the coach. Live and learn. You are never on safe and sure ground, no matter what the situation may actually be. Tough to watch. But the birthday was more important, and the holiday of Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, the holiday known in English as the Pentecost, which is simply just the celebration of the revelation at Sinai, was also this week, which was also just another great, glorious, and wonderful holiday. So joining me again for episode 244, season 5, episode 31, topic of the week on leading without knowing. Here's the truth. There are things, this is the famous Rumsfeld quote, there are things we know and there are things we don't know, and there are things that we don't know that we don't know. In the world around us, in our lives, we like to know as much about it as we can. We like to be on sure ground and safe ground and 2 feet planted as often as possible. And when it comes to the unknown, that's where real issues begin to fester, is when we simply just don't know. And so when the Bible shares with us a situation potentially of an unknown or something isn't known, we have to stop and think about it. We have to stop and learn about it. We have to appreciate how that perhaps helps us in the idea of leading in the wilderness, which is how we're focusing and we're thinking about the book of Numbers this year number 5, leading in the wilderness. And so it is the case that once again, we're about to move. The people in the desert have been aligned and organized. The camp has been set up, and now we're about to move. And once again, the Bible stops us. The story stops again, and it stops again to deal with suspicion. A man suspects his wife. There's no evidence. There's just fear. And it's enough really to threaten pretty much everything. And so we're talking about what's termed in Hebrew as the Isha Sota. In English, it's the woman suspected of an adulterous relationship. And it's not founded on actual evidence in the Bible. The husband warns his wife, the husband suspects his wife, and he brings that concern to the priest. And then the Bible describes an elaborate ceremony to determine the truth. It's not justice in the manner in which we understand justice, because there are no witnesses. There's no judge in the sense that the priest doesn't serve as the judge. The prophet in his day doesn't serve as the judge. The Sanhedrin, which would be the court, doesn't serve as the judge in these situations. It's really, to put it in air quotes, in the hands of God. So why is the Bible adding this in here at this moment when, again, the people are about to go on the move towards the land? Why is this here? It's a pretty basic question. We get asked it about every section of the Bible, certainly. But in this exact moment, when we know that just a couple of chapters from now, the people are going to start moving, we have to ask the question, why is it happening here and why is it happening now? Because when we talked last week about organizing the people, putting the people into a sacred structure, we have to appreciate something deeper about that. The structure alone isn't enough. Structure alone isn't trust. Structure alone, by and for itself, is simply not sufficient to be ready for what's next for the people. You can't march forward if you can't trust what's beside you. And you can't lead people through uncertainty without giving them the space to feel what they're afraid to say. So as much as this is about adultery or adulterous suspicion in relationship, it's really much deeper than that. And it's way more complex. And it's about the idea that leadership has to be able to hold before the mission can move forward. What I mean by hold is that there are certain things that a leader is going to have to hold for his or her subjects, for his or her team, for his or her family. They're going to have to emotionally contain all of that. They're going to have to really hold it in their hands before they can actually do anything else. And so there's no reason per se for the people in the desert to not trust the tribe that's next to them. But at the same time, they haven't spent time team building, like we talked a lot about last week, the idea of forming and storming and all that other stuff and norming and becoming a team and developing the rapport and the relationship and the timing and the harmony of a real team, a real unit. And so the Bible brings us an example from an incredibly intimate space, the relationship of husband and wife. Because if there is no trust there, if there's ambiguity there, if there's unknowing there, then you can't move forward. You can't fully succeed. You can't reach the full potential of what it is that you're trying to reach in your life, in your space, in your world. It's just not possible. And so it's going to extrapolate and to extract from that relationship to the nation writ large. And it does it in the following way. The man brings his wife to the priest. He suspects betrayal. He has no proof. The Bible tells us about this elaborate ritual. The Talmud and the commentaries here go into much greater detail about all the different aspects and different components of this event, this story, this ritual moment. Perhaps people are watching from the sides in the temple as this is taking place. There are ample opportunities for the woman to come clean, to say she did do something. She didn't do something, to bring proof that she did or that she didn't. For the husband to renege or to say, you know what, I don't want to do this, or to find proof himself that it did or that it didn't happen. It's in this ambiguity where this entirety of this event takes place. And then we go through this ritual. There is an offering which is brought, which is different. It's brought as a symbol of jealousy, not out of celebration. God's name is written on a parchment. That parchment is then soaked in a special kind of water. The name of God is dissolved. She drinks it. The result is left to God. If she did nothing wrong, she walks away. If she did do something wrong, the Bible describes pretty much that her body falls apart. And so this isn't about justice in the classic sense that we think about court systems and justice. Someone brings a claim against another. One brings witnesses, the other one brings evidence, they bring the video, they bring the law, they bring precedent, the judge asks questions, the lawyers be lawyers, all that stuff. This is not that. This is not some courtroom drama. And I'm not even sure it's about solving it, because there are situations that come up that are described in the Talmud and in the commentaries where it might not even work, ultimately. And so this is less about actually solving it than it is about holding it, about creating the emotional containment, the space for this situation to be resolved, to be held until the ambiguity or the unknowing becomes known, to elongate that process, but to give people the space to bring it out, to bring it to bear, so that the trust that we're looking to build, the trust that we need to hold and we need to have to be able to move forward is actually built, is actually there. Because unspoken mistrust, which is what this would be if the husband doesn't say it out loud. Now, that doesn't mean their relationship is on rock solid ground afterward. And if she survives the ceremony, that they're going to be the happiest married couple of all time. They probably still need to, see some sort of therapist. I'm not a therapist, so don't take my therapy advice on that one. But That seems pretty sure. But if unspoken mistrust is left to drift, it will collapse the camp faster than anything external. Take a look around. Perhaps the largest issue that different sides of issues have today in the world, politically speaking, is mistrust. That perhaps what's going on in the Bible here, on a different level of thinking about it, in the story itself, and then for the leader, that's you, the leader, is when we're leading in the wilderness, when we're out there, when all that's happening around us out there and we don't know, we need to figure out a way to hold the unknown long enough. So the event itself here that the Bible describes, a lot of the time we think about it in the space of jealousy, understandably, but it's more about giving it a safe space and a safe place to actually be seen. The jealousy is instinctual, it's raw, it's emotional. The pain that the husband is going through to bring his wife to this situation, the pain that perhaps she's going through to have put herself in this situation, maybe unshared, is below the surface, is a tension that exists in the relationship. And it simply cannot continue, it cannot grow, it cannot succeed without it being given the space to actually get resolved. And so we know famously from the Talmud that great is peace, for even the name of God is erased to preserve it. God's name, which is normally untouchable, is literally dissolved in water here because what's at stake isn't just this marriage, it's really much deeper. It's the fabric of the people. The Bible teaches us that peace in the home or peace in the world, whatever it is, peace in the community, let's start there. Peace requires some level of restraint, even at the cost of the sacred. We have to hold back. We have to give it air sometimes to breathe, to be able then to move forward, to get to where we want to go with it. In Coaching the Bible, I use them all the time because most of the time I simply don't know. That's how this works. So the first one is this. We mentioned him a couple of times, and we probably should talk about it more. Adaptive Leadership by Ron Heifetz. Leadership is about holding steady through the heat of uncertainty, allowing people to feel the pressures of change without ungluing the system. What that means is that heat of uncertainty is going to be there. And your job as the leader isn't necessarily to solve it at every moment, in every situation, but it is your job to make sure that it survives that moment and gets to the next moment without the system falling apart completely. I think a lot of us in leadership space might think that is failure. I'm not sure that's failure. Sometimes it's simply just getting you to the next moment or getting you to the next conversation, getting you to the next call with that person, which actually then gets you to a space where success can actually happen. And you have to just simply get through the cauldron, get through this difficult moment to get to that next moment. And so Heifetz coined the term holding environment, a holding environment. It's not really a physical space. It's what you might call more of a systemic container. That's why I keep using my hands. If you were just listening to this, think about holding your hands, how you hold your hands underwater when it's flowing from the faucet, or when you're trying to cup something in your hands. It allows people to process their discomfort, their doubts, and their fears without destroying the entirety of the entity, of the group, of the team. And so the Sota, this woman, is the Torah's version of a holding environment. It channels the jealousy, the pain, and the anger, and the frustration, and the suffering of this relationship of the husband towards his wife, or whatever, through the process and not through some punishment. And it prevents the breakdown at the moment by providing an absorbing space for the emotion. Number one, in terms of understanding how this works or what's going on here, that we're holding without breaking, that we're elongating the situation, is that first idea of this holding environment. Number two comes from Adam Grant, who we've also mentioned multiple times in Coaching the Bible throughout the years. Of course we would. Grant writes about how mistrust spreads when people sense something wrong but have no language or outlet or way to explain it. They fill the gaps, the ambiguity, the unknown spaces, the quiet with fear, with rumor, and worst case assumptions. Their mind starts to run because they simply don't know. We abhor the vacuum in those spaces. And so the story of the accused adulterous woman interrupts that spread, that thinking, that mistrust with a structure. It says, bring it forward. Let's name it. Let's ritualize it. Let's not let it rot. Let's not let it fester. Let's not let it continue to be a thing. Let's solve it. Solve it through a process. Let's hold it. Let's learn about it. Let's figure it out. Let's solve it. And then the third idea here in terms of holding without breaking is this concept of containment, which was introduced by a gentleman by the name of Wilfred Bion, which is this. He taught the idea of containment. Good leaders absorb anxiety from their group, not by fixing it, but by holding it without panic or retaliation. Again, the leader's job in many occasions is simply to just be the one to lift the anxiety, the stress, the frustration, the issue at play from the team and hold it for the team. And if the leader doesn't do this, that anxiety, that stress, that panic, that tension, whatever it may be, it turns primitive, it turns primal. People project, they attack, they break, they fall apart. And very much it may just say, look, can't stop the fear, at least not completely, but I can keep it from consuming us completely. And sometimes, many times, that's enough. We don't have to solve everything all the time. We don't have to be a superhero all the time. Sometimes it's simply just holding it and getting it to the next moment. And so here, leader, I want you to think about what it is, what kind of leadership container you're building. When was the last time that for myself, for my family, for my team, I held that ambiguity, that unknowing, that anxiety about it without being able to rush or need to fix it immediately? Have I held that uncertainty for everybody else? Have I been able to lift it off of them? Or the flip, which is, when was the last time I know for sure I didn't do that? I didn't provide that leadership for my team, and it sat there with everybody for an extended period of time, painfully, and then didn't get resolved, and it simply just sunk below the surface to become much, much worse and much, much deeper. And then it shows itself in the mistrust. The people that I lead know I can handle their doubts. What a question. And so if you're a corporate leader, if you're in a startup, if you're in a nonprofit, you're a communal leader, all kinds of things pop up. Rumors, accusations, assumptions, tension. People feel excluded. People feel left out from the team. They don't know exactly what's going on. Suspicions start to brew. And then the bad leader ignores it, or worse, blames somebody else. But the great leader builds the containers, creates the one-on-ones, the feedback rituals, the space to name and navigate through the discomfort. And the Bible is telling us, don't wait until it completely collapses and falls apart. Build a vessel now, create the structure now, put the system in place now so that the trust can be built. And we can know that if we find ourselves in a position of unknowing, of uncertainty, of ambiguity, we have a way through. We have a way out. We have a way to see the other end where the light is on the other side of that. That's huge. That's huge. And that's why this is here now. This is for the greater unit building the system to be ready. So this is the nation before the nation moves. After the nation is structured, the nation is building a trust system, an emotional container system to be ready for when it needs to be in place. And it also explains why you have the Nazarite story right there as well, because that is not about the collective, that is about the personal level of discipline. So we need the communal relational containment. We also need the person to try to anchor themselves. We have a global communal responsibility, and we also have a personal level of accountability in there to build up our level of resilience, of discipline, of strength to anchor ourselves so that we can elevate our inner focus. And so this is actually subtle, but it's genius. The Bible doesn't erase the fear. It doesn't fully validate it either. It simply says, let's create a sacred system that we're all going to trust and rely in, that's going to hold it so we can actually get to where we need to be able to transform, to succeed. It's not about control. It's about keeping cohesion and holding the dignity so that we can persevere and that we can preserve the trust of the people. We can preserve the dignity of those who are in doubt, and we can preserve the larger mission that lies ahead. And so to finish it out, here's just a couple of quick tools I think can really, really help us make this work. Try this the next time you walk into a meeting with your team. Begin the meeting by saying the following. Hey guys, what's the emotional temperature in the room today? Where's everybody holding? Even use that term. It sounds corny and it sounds weird. Yes. And if you've never said it before, for sure, people are going to be like, huh? Like, what? What are you talking about? What's the emotional temperature in the room today? Let people share their stress levels, their moods, or their moods of their teams, or the unspoken tensions that might exist. We want to normalize that discomfort, which then reduces some of the projection and some of the other underlying and undiscussed or undescribed or unspoken of stresses and anxieties that are out there. Or you might have what I'll call a pause protocol. It's almost like the red button, maybe not a red button, but a button nonetheless, that says sometimes in a meeting, hey, I think we need a pause. And it has to be that anyone in the room can call it. So this is like for high level meetings probably, but anyone can look around the room. If it gets hot, if it gets high, if emotions are getting tough, if trust dips, if the voices rise, if people are saying things perhaps that they're going to regret later, anyone can say, I think we need a pause. That language stops the spiral, and it stops the spiral without allowing shame to set in or to getting to a place into a point where there's no return. And that pause moment is, in fact, the ritual of containment. That's a different form of holding your hands with the water in it. And it works. Hey, let's take 5 minutes here. When things are uncertain, when things are unclear, when we're not sure, we don't have the full picture yet. I don't fully know all the details just yet, but we're going to face this together. We're going to figure this out together. At the moment, I don't know, but as leader of this team, CEO, executive director, leader of the community, I'm going to work with all my might to figure it out, and we're going to get through this together. That language is enough. So if you're thinking about this, think about those kinds of practical tools. Think about how I am or I am not containing the emotional space for my team and holding it for them and giving them the room to say the things that they need to say, or giving them the room to appreciate and speak of the unknowns and the ambiguity and the uncertainty and the anxiety and the stresses that they're holding. In the same way that the Bible does here in the story of the accused adulterous woman. Before the people move here in the Bible, before they march into their destiny, the Bible stops again the story and teaches us this lesson, not about the conquest or anything else, but about containment and about control. Because for the most part, and what we talked about earlier on, the greatest threat isn't from the outside. It's what happens when we mistrust everyone around us, and the mistrust really has no place to land. The story isn't about jealousy. It's about a level of wisdom and appreciation of the dynamics that exist in teams and in communities and in ambiguity and in uncertainty. And the leadership isn't knowing what's true, at least not always, but it is about building the system can hold and hold and hold what you'll never fully know, at least not fully know now. And that is how you lead in the wilderness. Finish it out with a quote. I'm going to just bring back that quote from Ron Heifetz that we mentioned before. Leadership is about holding steady through the heat of uncertainty, allowing people to feel the pressures of change without ungluing the system. Wishing all of you a wonderful and glorious and incredibly beautiful weekend ahead. I look forward to seeing you next week as we hit episode 245.